I'm Matt Gelka in Washington, where Trump administration officials continued to make explosive allegations that former President Barack Obama and members of his administration are guilty of treason. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard released a series of infographics on social media Wednesday and also declassified a House intelligence report from September of 2020. She says they show former President Obama and his administration participated in, quote, the most egregious weaponization and politicization of intelligence in American history, when intelligence agencies concluded Russia tried to meddle in the 2016 election and preferred Donald Trump be the winner.
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. The expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people.
Gabbard claims the documents expose how the Obama administration manufactured the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that they knew was false, and the president has seized on the claims.
The leader of the gang was President Obama. It's there, he's guilty. This was treason.
An Obama spokesperson responded to the accusations directly, saying in part on Tuesday these bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. The House report concludes that some of the work of the intelligence community was rushed, and the assessment that Russian President Vladimir Putin preferred Trump win didn't meet the standard of other findings by using unreliable intelligence. It also said that directives from then-President Obama were unusual. The House report, however, agreed with most of the intelligence findings, including that Russia attempted cyber influence operations heading into the 2016 election, Putin wanted to undermine faith in the elections, and also had compromising information on then-candidate Hillary Clinton, but held back on releasing it. The Senate Intelligence Committee released its own bipartisan report in 2020 affirming that Russia tried to meddle in the 2016 election. Current Secretary of State Marco Rubio, then a Florida Republican senator, was on that committee. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
The nation's capital. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and we begin with the Trump administration on the defensive as they continue to assert the narrative that the Obama administration manufactured evidence of Russian interference in the 2016 election. Let's go straight to Ryan Smith at the live desk for a deep dive. Ryan?
More revelations announced today surrounding declassified documents alleging the U.S. Intelligence Committee at that time did not have any direct information that proved Russia meddled in that election to tip the scales for Donald Trump. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, saying they have, quote, irrefutable evidence that proves President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of and pushed an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. Listen.
They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't.
Gabbard declassified a highly sensitive congressional report written during Trump's first term. It states, quote, the ICA did not cite any report where Putin directly indicated helping Trump win was the objective. That judgment rested on a questionable interpretation of this one unclear fragment of a sentence. This ICA omitted reliable evidence that Putin's key advisor saw significant downsides to a Trump presidency. The ICA selectively excluded information from reliable intelligence sources that senior Russian officials had serious reservations about how a potential Trump administration could be bad for Moscow. Now tonight, the DOJ announcing it has now formed a strike force to investigate Gabbard's evidence that the Obama White House manufactured some of that intelligence.
In order to understand why the Trump administration is determined to get answers on this issue from this report, we need to take a step back and take a look at where we were nearly 10 years ago. At its heart, President Trump boomed onto the political scene during his first run for president in June of 2015. We now know that the FBI began investigating the Trump campaign for links to Russia back in July of 2016, while Barack Obama was president. The FBI was tracking tracking campaign officials and inner circle people based on what we now know was the widely discredited and unverified Steele dossier report. That investigation was known as the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Several members of Trump's inner circle and future administration were caught up in it and faced legal prosecution. In September of 2016, word of unverified Russian attempts to interfere in our elections became public, meaning that information was likely leaked to the public. 1 month later, in October, that means 1 month before the U.S. election, those claims were publicly confirmed by intelligence agencies. And despite all of that, on November 8th, 2016, President Trump was elected to the White House by the American people. And that's where this week's reports from DNI Tulsi Gabbard comes into focus. Now, between November and up until 2 weeks before President Trump's first inauguration in January of 2017, top Obama officials continued to meet behind closed doors and dig into potential Russian interference. On January 6, 2017, the DNI put out its report on Russia interference 2 weeks before Trump was sworn into office. This is known as an ICA. Now, the intelligence community was led by folks like CIA Director John Brennan, DNI James Clapper, FBI Director James Comey, NSA Susan Rice, and AG Loretta Lynch, all Obama-era officials. This week, we now know all of those Intelligence Committee members all testified between the years of 2017 to 2018 that they had no, quote, empirical evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. So the question the Trump administration is asking is, why? As Ryan mentioned, today's declassified House intelligence report from 2020 states that back in January of 2017, the intelligence community did not have any direct information that Russian President Vladimir Putin wanted to help elect Donald Trump during the 2016 presidential election, publishing potentially biased or implausible intelligence suggesting otherwise.
Any day now, federal officials could release new declassified intelligence reports they say show a coordinated plan and years-long coup at the highest level of government to create and manufacture false intelligence that President Trump colluded with Russia during the 2016 election. This morning, there are also reports the FBI's role was to spread that narrative even before its actual controversial investigation. Joining us this morning to discuss is the former head of the Chicago PD and 23-year veteran of the FBI as special agent in charge, Jody Weiss. Jody, I want to get right into it. There's a lot to talk about here. There is speculation that one of the pieces of evidence to be released is what officials say is John Brennan's own notes from a meeting back in 2016 where he reportedly briefed President Obama, James Comey, former Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and James Clapper on a plan from a Clinton campaign advisor to, quote, vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by the Russian security service. What's your reaction to this? And by the way, this is the first time that I've actually heard former Attorney General Loretta Lynch involved in any of this at all.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting piece of evidence that might come forward, Janet. Think about it. You've got the head of the CIA briefing the President of the United States, the Attorney General, the head of the ODNI, about a plan hatched by the Clinton campaign to dirty up, to vilify President Trump. And then, lo and behold, 6 months later or so, there's these allegations that came forward showing that this plan was hatched with this fabricated information that came forward, this false intel report, for the sole purpose of undermining the President of the United States. So think about that. Was that actually the genesis of where this came to be? What I like about this is it aligns pretty closely with the allegations that came forward a few weeks ago. And I think it can go a long way to show that this was done knowingly and overcome that intent aspect that you have to prove out a criminal case. So this could be a pretty critical piece of evidence if it comes to light.
I see what you're saying, because if it happened in July of 2016 is supposedly when that meeting allegedly happened, right? So you're saying anything from that point forward, they already had information about this. What I found interesting, too, was that a month prior was the big tarmac meeting between then Attorney General Loretta Lynch and former President Bill Clinton. Remember that? It was this big 20-minute meeting. There was a lot of talk about it. What's your thoughts in regards to that?
Well, it just seems very coincidental that that takes place. And I don't believe they're talking about golf. And then a month later, this comes forward. So maybe that's when we should realize maybe it didn't look like Hillary Clinton was going to win the election like everybody thought at that time. And this had to be almost like an insurance policy, if you would, that to put some like vilify the president.
In your experience with the FBI, how do you see this thing moving forward?
I'm pretty excited about this strike force approach. I mean, I think that's a great way to go at it. They're going to have a group of people looking for the legal grounds, if there is any, for prosecutory action. I wish the Attorney General would have announced a time period, like let's say we've got 90 days to look at everything. I'd like to know the composition, but Jan, think back. The special counsels that we've used in the past, pretty unremarkable conclusion and results. So I like that it's going to be this strike force to look at something fast, look at it deep, and then come up with a conclusion and where they're going to go forward much quicker than a special counsel.
Who do you see as having the most criminal liability in this?
Well, I think Brennan definitely for sure has the greatest vulnerability. You think about it, he testified in furtherance of this intelligence community assessment in May of 23. So he's clearly within the statute of limitations. I think Jim Comey has a lot of exposure. I think James Clapper does. I mean, Clapper actually said he's going to lawyer up. And I know a lot of people are talking about President Obama. I don't see him being charged based upon the Supreme Court decision, but he will, or at least should be held for judgment in the court of public opinion if the mainstream media would ever report this. I've been shocked at the silence. But the one point I would make, Jan, is while I'd love to see everybody involved in this, that it can be proven that they committed a crime, go to jail, almost of equal importance, we have to find out exactly what happened and make sure we put safeguards in place that this can never happen again. This undermines our country, and for a democratic republic, the people have to believe in its government. And right now, that's in jeopardy.
All right. Retired FBI agent Jody Weiss, we appreciate you joining us this morning to discuss.
Thank you, Jan.
I'm Matt Gelka in Washington, where a new unclassified document looks to further tie former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton to questionable intelligence about Russian interference in the 2016 election. A new declassified annex to the 2023 Durham report has new details on the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. The report contains previously unseen correspondence that then-candidate Hillary Clinton approved a plan to smear Donald Trump by magnifying the scandal tied to the intrusion by the Russian special services.
But I think it's evidence of the great depth that the deep state will go to cover up weaponization that was going on in the FBI and the executive branch of government generally under the Obama administration.
Other parts of the annex show part of the plan was meant to distract from Clinton's own email scandal. The correspondence was taking place as the FBI and intelligence services were investigating potential Russian influence and meddling in the election and any ties to Trump in an operation known as Crossfire Hurricane.
This is further evidence that Hillary Clinton approved the Russia hoax against President Trump. Her campaign financed it. Again, she approved it.
Fox News reported that the annex was discovered along with other documents by FBI Director Kash Patel in a secret room in a burn bag used to destroy classified material. The Durham report from 2023 concluded that the FBI bungled the investigation into Russian interference and alleged collusion with Trump in a lot of ways, calling it seriously flawed. An op-ed from former CIA Director John Brennan and former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper ahead of the document's release slammed the Trump administration's claims, saying the administration was seeking to rewrite history. The two former officials defended the findings at the time.
The last couple of weeks, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and CIA Director John Ratcliffe have been putting out very misleading and inaccurate reports about what was included in that intelligence community assessment.
The newly released documents are part of a series of new files from the Trump administration where Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has said there's evidence of treason against former President Obama, alleging the former president and allies manufactured intelligence to stop Trump from getting elected by trying to tie him to Russia. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.